Hello, this is Kane, and this is going to be my first impression slash review of Anthem. Now, before I go into it, I do need to mention that this is really my first looter shooter. I've got no experience with games like Warframe or what is it called, Destiny. Well, I played a bit of Destiny 2 for a couple of hours. I did not enjoy it at all. Or games like The Division and anything like that. So I've got maybe, let's say, 2-3 hours of experience in looter shooters. Which is of course absolutely marginal, and it will color my opinions. Whether that will be a good or a bad thing, I shall leave up to you to decide. Now, Anthem is of course the latest title from BioWare. Now, the BioWare of today is not the same as the BioWare of the past. Like, this is not the BioWare that made Mass Effect 1 or even Mass Effect 2 and 3. Like, it's not even the BioWare that made Mass Effect Andromeda, which was already terrible. So, is it safe to really say this is a BioWare title? Well, if it has the name on it, it's gonna have a effect on the expectations that we're gonna have from this game. So, I do think it's important to keep that in mind as well. If they had just said, like, you know what, we're just forming a new studio to make Anthem, it probably would have gotten less hype, which would have been a good thing for Anthem, and it would have not been perhaps compared to existing IPs that were created by BioWare. However, before we go into that area, I'd like to start off with the best thing about Anthem, and that's the combat. The combat in Anthem is fluid, it's fun, and it just works. It triggers the right feelings, it's enjoyable, and there are some variations in it in the ways you want to play it. In the form of the 4 javelins, of course. Each does their own sort of thing, although the core behind most things remains the same. And the core of the Anthem combat system, of course, is a fairly basic combo system with primers and detonators. On top of this, you have your standard weapons, your melee attacks, in which case the interceptor over here, of course, has a lot of them because they're built around it, so they can continuously chain them. And you got your otherwise ultimate abilities. And the ultimate abilities also, of course, depend on your javelin, and they can be very, very useful. I mean, for example, my interceptor over here, the ultimate, just means I lose quite a bit of ability, but I can just melee around, do massive amounts of damage, and I'm completely invulnerable. And I also completely heal up, so I can just use that, like, go in there, do something crazy, and not be affected by it all that much. But even if I am almost dead, I can just pop that ultimate ability, heal back up, start whacking things around, and probably by the end of it I should be fine. But the key thing here is that it's fun, and I do think, with the endgame mechanics, dungeons and things like that, using different mechanics around the bosses, you can add more depth to this system. And I think also down the line, they can add more abilities, they can maybe come up with some different sorts of combinations and combos, who knows. But there is clearly potential within this combat system, and I think the foundations of it just are fun and they work really well. So, really a good point there for Anthem. Now, to go to the somewhat lesser good things about Anthem, let's go and talk about the story, the lore. And I think it's safe to say that for a BioWare title, Anthem is disappointing. Now, do keep in mind, like, of course, lore and stories are also a personal thing. Like, I may enjoy one thing over another, and you may enjoy something entirely different and something entirely else. So hey, take that for what you want, but this is my own perspective on this. And my feeling with Anthem is that it is incredibly generic. There's nothing that grabs your attention when you're playing Anthem as far as the lore and the story goes, or even the characters. Like, most of the characters I've found so far are perfectly serviceable, but they're not memorable. I've not yet found my Rex. I've not yet found my Garrus, or my Tali, or, you know, pretty much name any character from the original Mass Effect trilogy. It's probably gonna be better than the characters I found in Anthem so far. Like, even if I compare like to Mass Effect Andromeda, like some of those characters are generally I consider to be really bad, and I think that's about the same level of characters that I'm seeing here in Anthem. So yeah, take that for what you want. I'm just thinking it's incredibly disappointing from a BioWare title to be so dull and not interesting in regards to its story and characters and lore. Like, most games I want to play through those missions, I want all those cutscenes, and when I'm playing Anthem I'm just like, you know what, I don't care, just shut up and let me kill stuff, because the killing the stuff is fun. Everything else is, there's probably a very good reason for it, but it's not interesting. So yeah, disappointment, absolute disappointment in my opinion. So not really worthy of the old school, you know, idea behind BioWare titles. Now, of course, as we mentioned in the beginning, this is no longer the BioWare of all time, so perhaps it's fitting, but I think it probably would have been better if they had just put another name on it, because it would have created different expectations. It would have lowered the amount of hype that people would have had for this game, and I think Anthem has been definitely overhyped, and it has been definitely hurting it. So, probably a poor decision from marketing as well. Now, another thing of course when a game like this, it's somewhat open world here in your free play, is the map, the game map of Anthem. The game map of Anthem is probably one of the things that I find to be the most annoying purely from a game playing perspective and feeling of the game. Like, not even talking from the lore wise or anything like that, but just purely from a game design perspective. The map in Anthem is, to be honest, kind of horrible. And the reason behind that is that it's supposed to be a large area. However, you're always flying in these canyons of various sizes, so you never feel like you're in a open area. You always feel like you're being enclosed. You never get that feeling of freedom that a large open area can give you. And that, I think, is a very critical flaw in design. Now, of course, there could be that there are lore reasons for that, but you created a complete lore from scratch, so you could have just made the lore fit a better designed map. Now, it also does not help that the map looks pretty much the same. No matter where you are, there's not enough variations in it to make it interesting. Like, if I say compare it to a game like Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is a game I've spent a lot of time playing as well. That map has places that are, I've got swamps, I've got desert, I've got salt flats, I've got snow-capped mountains, I've got jungles, you know, normal grasslands, I've got a giant lake, and there's all of these different areas within the same map. And that makes it feel like it has scale to it. It makes it feel like there is something around there that's I can do something with. And that's just not the case here with the map that they've designed for Anthem. I think that's probably a massive disappointment for a game that's, you know, flying around. It could be fun, like I want to fly around and feel like I'm in this vast open space and not in this tiny as enclosed corridor space. But yeah, probably not something they will ever be able to fix, and I think it's going to be a detractor from the game, in my personal opinion, for as long as it stands. Going from the map and also mentioning, like I also mentioned, it looks very much the same, and I think that's also can be said for the general aesthetic of the game. The general aesthetic of Anthem is just quite boring. It's not, it doesn't feel inspired, so to speak. Like the sort of structures that you're seeing here, these ruins, they all feel the same. Like I have seen it before in different IPs, in different games. And that's just... It's one of those things like you're expecting this amazing world again, you know, from the world perspective, and it's just not there, and the aesthetics are also not there. All of these things that are just subtracting slowly from the experience of playing a game like Anthem. Now, finally, the bad things. One of the things, of course, a lot of people know, is loading screens. There are a lot of them, and most of them are ridiculously long. Now, this game is running from an SSD, so it should not be taking this insanely long. But it does, and it's pretty much for everybody, and it's... Ugh. Please, make your game better. Like, this is just a technical thing, they should have done that better. And the same can be said for the performance, because the performance of Anthem is horrible. Now, I'm running what used to be like a year ago, we would say be a high-end system. These days you would say it's probably a mid-range system, in the form of a Ryzen 1800X, a GTX 1070, and 32 gigabytes of RAM, and as I said, the game is just running from standard SATA 3 SSD. With those kind of specs, you know, I would expect the game to be able to maintain at least 60 frames per second when I put it on the lowest of the lowest of the lowest settings, with everything else turned off, at 1440p. And it doesn't. This game will not maintain 60 frames a second with my current PC specifications, which are really on the kind of higher end stuff. Like, building a PC, you know, with similar performance right now, you're probably looking at, you know, $1,100 to $1,500 easily. A PC of that kind of caliber, you would expect more from it. You would expect more from a game like Anthem, that it would just run properly. And it doesn't. Now you could say like, oh, but it is like this fast open map, so maybe that has to do with it. Frostbite was maybe not the best for it. Okay, but then where is my performance in a dungeon? You know, which is a enclosed environment. It's still shit. So that's Anthem really, in a nutshell. As short as I could make it without trying to overdo it in a lot of things, but it's just a disappointment in many things. The only redeeming factor that it really has is this combat system, and it is a combat system that I think really has a chance to shine if they are spending the time and money on it. And that's the thing that I'm going to be most fearful of, because BioWare, of course, is owned by EA. And we all know that EA, well, is EA. If you're not making money, then EA will just shut you down. They'll just scuttle it, they don't care, they'll just cut their losses and they'll move on. They really don't care. They're driven by profits and profits alone. And when you're looking at a company that's driven by profits alone, and you have a title like Anthem, which from all accounts is not really doing brilliantly, and rightfully so, because, you know, it's a competent game, but nothing more than that, considering to what it has been hyped up to be. I highly doubt that EA is really going to be willing to spend the money and the time on Anthem in long term. And with that in mind, like, keep in mind, of course, full in speculation on that bit, but I have to keep that in mind for myself. I cannot recommend Anthem as a purchase. As I said, the combat is incredibly fun, and if it is like, if you look at this like, yeah, I could enjoy this and I want to be playing this, well, I'm not going to stop you from buying this game, as there are things that are fun. The combat is fun, but I cannot recommend it, especially not if, you know, if you just want to loot a shooter. There are free to play options out there, like go play Warframe, for example. There are options there, and you don't need to play something like Anthem. Anyhow, this has been my first impressions / review of Anthem. I do hope you found it interesting. If you have different opinions or thoughts or anything like that, please do let them know down in the comments. I am curious to hear them as always. And besides that, all it leaves me to say is thank you so much, and I'll see you around next time.